first encountered the collective work of Robert Lyons and Daniel Irizarry when I reviewed their hit absurdist musical My Onlyness for Offense Online back in 2022. The production received rave reviews during its run at the now shuttered New Ohio Theater, where Lyons served as artistic director from 1993 until its closure in 2023. It was there that he and Irizarry first began a collaborative partnership, and since then, they've been making some great, wild, and weird theater. The two, along with performer and composer Rhys Tivey, are back with their latest collaboration, Class Dismissed, which is currently running at La Mama Experimental Theater Club. I sat down with Lyons, Irizarry, and Tivey as they each spoke about their beginnings into avant-garde theater, as well as their creative process.
So yeah, I was not able to say hi after the show, but I saw it the other night, and again, blew my mind. Yeah, it's yeah, you guys really turn out like pretty wild theatrical experiences. So yes, it was definitely something that I would love to talk about even more compared to our previous one. So yeah, and thanks, Rhys, for agreeing to join us this time around. I would love to talk about the music because the music was great. Um, so again, first off, uh, as I said before in our previous meeting, I first encountered your work when I saw My Onlyness back in 2022 at the New Ohio. And again, like I said before, and I'll say it again after this show, it was really um, one of the wildest experiences I've ever had at the theater. And so I just wanted to start off by sort of going around and asking a little bit of like how you all, or rather, what drew you all to more avant-garde forms of theatrical expression. Um, and yeah, so whoever wants to start, um, Robert, I suppose, since you've sort of had a few years with your foot on an ear on the ground with New Ohio, if you want to speak to that experience.
Yeah, I think when I first the first show I saw in New York was Symphony for of Rats or for Rats, Richard Foreman show, and that was probably the first one that really just like opened up my eyes to how crazy theater can be and what it can be made of. And so that was an important moment. I'd just gotten here like weeks before, and and I thought, yeah, okay, this is like the theater I'm interested in and that I want to be involved in. And of course, by running the Ohio Theater for all those years, I had all those great downtown artists coming through the space. So I was constantly in touch with that impulse for people doing, non-conventional, just out there stuff. So I had a pretty steady diet of it my whole adult life, and I think that's where that comes from.
I go second.
Yes,
Rhys, you want to go second or
You go ahead.
okay? I think I started in undergrad in a really traditional approach of Stanislavski, early Stanislavski method acting, but then there were other classes that was branching out from those ism for that ism. And I remember reading by accident a quote of the poor theater Grotowski talking about what theater has that film doesn't have, and is the three dimension, and the answer was three dimensionality and time. With film, you have the close up, and that idea of the rawness, no, of the human condition was really important for me from the beginning. So we are in a space, empty space, a la Peterbrook, that people come, they gather, and we have actors, audience, and three-dimensional space and time. And then um, the possibility of just having that, instead of just recreating life, what about interpreting life or digesting life through a poetic lens or blah, blah, blah. And then I got into all the rabbit holes here in New York City, at Columbia University MFA program with Anne Bogart, Anders Sherban, Christian Linklater, like the big influence, Nikki Walsh, to go deeper in that non-traditional, not in the box, like we learned at La Mama Museum tour, to the work. And for me, it's always been about like germs and bembe and gathering, bringing people together. So that first approach of experimentation came from I think that quote from Grotowski in that book, so, and then seeing works in Puerto Rico, abroad, and also here in New York City, that was against that norm. And here I remember seeing Peter, Chuck-headed Peter, a musical, really weird musical that lived for like a month only in New York. And I was like blown away. I was like, why this is not running longer? But of course it was not commercial, but there was always space for experimentation in New York City. So that was exciting.
Yes. I would say my schooling was for jazz for trumpet at NYU, and while I was at NYU, I met a professor who was teaching at Gallatin through a friend who was studying with him, and he was teaching some practices, some group practices around this idea of shamanism. And I think that feels meaningful and influential for me in a very non-linear way. This kind of like me starting as a musician, starting as jazz trumpet player, and then getting involved in some of these practices of kind of like in group setting, kind of entering into a subconscious state of visioning, and kind of like it's maybe can be connected to dream interpretation and Jung and these kinds of things that like there's something powerful to the practice of symbology and dream interpretation as like a kind of intentional practice. I think and it was also through that community that I got my first opportunity to be in theater. It was this production at the Theater for the New Audience in the East Village with Phoebe Legere doing this production called Shakespeare and Elizabeth, the reality show. That was like this really fun kind of satire thing. And so like that kind of planted the scene of experimental theater for me as an integration of me. Like I got to play trumpet, I got to act, I got to sing. So I kind of like planted the seed of this kind of multi-dimensional participation in theater. And it was connected to this kind of tangential thing around shamanism that I got to from jazz performance. And then several years passed by and I kind of and I was involved in dance collaboration a little bit as a musician with some folks. I have a partner named Natalie Dern Johnson who's been really influential to me as an embodiment genius, and through those waves, like Danielle and I met each other first because he made a call for a part for my loneliness. And on the first call, I got to share about having spontaneously been kind of absorbed into this underground anarchist theater in Berlin. And that was like really exciting for Danielle in terms of hearing about the kind of the bizarre experience that was. So it kind of like set the tone. So I'll say, I think that my involvement in theater has had this very tangential, nonlinear way, and that I feel very grateful to have been brought into this world in large part because of Danielle and Robert. It feels almost like they've been very influential for me getting situated here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that whole Berlin experimental theater thing sounds very on brand for what for what
Yeah.
Danielle and
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Renee
different.
do.
That's just an interview between you and Rhys. because that's a beautiful story. Rhys,
Uh,
what happened?
oh,
What
yeah,
happened
that
with you?
sounds like a whole other, a
Oh my
whole
God.
other
Oh,
episode.
I was like, you're hired. You're hired.
Hmm. Yeah, so with that in mind, in terms of like, so Danielle, with your work at 1/8 and everything, um, you tend to do a lot of again, multidisciplinary elements. There's poetry, there's music, there's physicality on the stage. Um, and that a lot of it has been rooted in what Robert's writing um, has entailed. And so you two first collaborated at the New Ohio during the archive residency. Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit about sort of um, Robert? I think you approached, or rather, you approached Robert to write a piece. How did that start for you both? What was that first collaboration like? And how did that sort of process go from the page to the stage?
Robert, you want to, we don't hear you, Robert. We don't hear you.
Just yeah, around yeah, I had been hearing about Danielle's work, and he was reaching out for me to see it. I saw him in two shows, The Maids and what was the other one? The
Teacher teaches.
Teacher Teach.
Yeah,
And
UNESCO.
and
Yeah.
then we invited him into our residency program at the New Ohio with Corey Rushton, IRT. And that was the beginning, so that was when we started actually working together, but that was really us presenting his work and developing their work, giving them resources to develop a piece. And inside of that piece, he did ask me to write a short text for him, which I did, and it got incorporated into the piece, and then that went on to be further developed and went to Cuba and went to South Korea, went to Poland, and that was kind of the beginning of, I'd say this was fun and let's do some more. And I think
Like reflecting back, Robert, every time we work together, it's been an accident. Like, because I was doing the residency of numbness, right?
Mhm.
And then I was not on stage, and you mentioned I miss you on stage, and then you wrote, I asked you to write something. Joe was born. The musical, My Only, it was an accident too, because it was a podcast or something that we were interviewing people during the pandemic, and then we talk about a musical. And then Robert said, in that interview, I will write a musical for you. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And then we spoke after that talk. And then the last time, now that we're doing this project, I was in Korea. This is the first time, this project is the first time. I'm always the one inviting Robert. 1/8. Come, can you write?
Mhm.
This is the first time in my, Robert, correct me, but it was the other way around. Robert was closing the theater, he's writing something, and then he said, I would like for you to direct. So it was the first time that Robert was inviting me to direct something, so of his writing. And so we love working together, but in a way, just reflecting, it always been some kind of accident that we were not expecting Joe to be born at that residency. And then My Onlyness, look what happened. And now look where we are at La Mama. It's like this beautiful domino effect. And in terms of is like multimedia with the company, when I was in Turkey, there was a really strong musical theater department, and I started falling in love working with musicians. I always like working with musicians,
Mhm.
but having a strong department, composers, musician, and then how that elevates, the theatrical experience. The thing is that it's so expensive. How you bring all the people together. When Robert wrote My Only inspired by Viscasi work, conglomeration of all these disciplines, Rhys came to the equation, having all this amazing background, being a great actor, a musician, a singer. It's like, this is what we're looking for. It's not just theater, it's like an alchemy of theater. So that idea of, like, for example, this Saturday, we have no idea what's going to happen because we're adding the layer of technology and it's going to be really crazy. But the reason why is yes, is because the equation is the same. we accept what media is out there, form of art is out there to help tell the story in a better way. So that's going to happen this Saturday at 9 a.m. It's just so it's like an equation that keeps growing as a company. Like when I like, and then you hear the people around you, the decolonization, and then, for example, Yarani, amazing singer. She needs to sing in this show more. And then she reads music. She's a trained vocalist, and it was a beautiful match. Uh,
Right.
just to see Rhys and Jarani working together was really exciting. But it happened because of the people, the ecosystem, like how the people come together. But the equation is the same in that sense. I don't know if that makes any sense. I just
No, yeah, that definitely makes sense. So, Reese, in terms of going from My Onlyness, where it was, I believe it was composed by someone else, right? And Reese was just a performer. And then, so I want to know, like, sort of from going from, you know, a performer interpreting someone else's music to then going into this project with Class Dismissed, and composing and providing the music. If you can just sort of uh, lay out what that process was like, um, and how much
Hmm.
collaboration was there between the three of you, if you know, if at all.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we first did Class Dismissed as ultra left violence to close the New Ohio Theater a year and a half ago or so. And for that devising process, I'd received the text and included this song that Robert and Danielle wanted me to set music to the text that Robert had written. And so I contacted Robert and I was like, I love this text. I think it might really enliven the process for me if you, as the creator of these words, got into the studio with me and we had a moment just to be bodies in the room. And and so Robert came to my kind of home studio and we just kind of had that moment. And I'm always a little bit surprised when, talking like I think one of the things that I really love about working with both Danielle and Robert is the uh, miraculous cohesion of their differences as people. I think that Robert and Danielle have really different approaches as creatives. They have kind of, in some ways, like very different personalities, and I think it works really beautifully. And so, at times in which I've talked to Robert, what I've noticed about Robert is that he really lets his text speak for itself, and he gives very little explanation about the meaning or the intention or really much at all. And so what was interesting about that moment is that it was this like I don't know if I was expecting anything in particular, but in asking like, okay, we're here together, we're looking at the text. I'm envisioning that I may be able to get into some musical experimentations with you in the room. And it turned out that that was able to happen really nicely and really beautifully. And that it was really just like Robert physically being in the room that I feel like was this fun beginning to the musical collaboration because, I sat at the piano, I started to play with some ideas, and it just kind of flowed. And I kind of set down into. I think I like working intuitively. I like working from a kind of like hands-on, somewhat improvisational approach as a composer, where like the seed of the musical elements will oftentimes come from a spark, and a spark is impulsive, it's chaotic, it's unpredictable, and so the environment can really influence the nature of the spark, the context, the people in the room can really influence the nature of the starting point seed spark. And so with this one, the spark was, I think, like me and Robert in the room, me sitting at the piano, and me coming up with this kind of piano part and singing over it, playing with some of these ideas. And I think we in the room, I think I was able to get the chorus because I knew I wanted it to feel really iconic and um, almost poppy, but also went through different tonal modalities a little bit. So it feels minor at times, it feels dominant, it feels major. It kind of like moves around a little bit tonality wise, um, but the chorus has this kind of like fun, like shout chorus, we can clap with it kind of thing. And so I think that that first composition in the process of me being composer on Heliport, it kind of really helped set the tone of that core intention of like we have text that in its way is a little bit opaque and also very visual. Like there's a lot of visual imagery that's really interesting in the text, but it doesn't demand a specific and narrow interpretation of what's being said. It's really rich with possibility, and and so how do we like combine the, and in that way the text, it feels like it, like to set it in a somewhat poppy energy creates a little bit of a tension that's like a positive tension. And so with then this round, when it became class dismissed and we started rehearsing a couple months ago, um, Robert and Danielle informed me that they envisioned these two new scenes. And then for these two new scenes, I think it was natural that like Danielle came in and you had a lot of really cool specific visions that you had started to incubate in terms of like what do we want the function and the purpose of music to be inside these scenes, inside this text. And so the first one, the I think, and please jump in if you want, Danielle, but what I remember is like these kind of uh, disparate and different. Like it was like a menagerie of influences from Klaus Nomi, who's this really fascinating, weird, obscure collaborator of David Bowie, to Meredith Monk, to Beckett. And there's kind of some similarity in the experimentalness, but there's also like a lot of difference. Go ahead.
No, no, the implosion, because there's so much movement. It's like in
Yeah,
this scene, I mean, exploration of the voice and no movement, barely movement, you
yeah,
know. So that was like the
right.
acting style, and then the other one continued, like was
Yep,
the musical, and then but that's the only thing I did. Like, I knew the acting style and what I wanted, and then I gave that title or theme to Rhys, and then you go bananas. That's why, you know, like it was a band that we
yeah,
decided those things, right? And then at MIT that you were able to like 3 months or 2 months happen, and then here that residency that you were sorry to
yeah,
digest. Yeah, I just
yeah.
wanted
And
to
so,
drop in BAM at MIT. That's I just
yes, yeah,
I
yeah,
just want to add one
yeah,
last thing because there was a little bit of a step from the time we did that workshop at New Ohio. There was not, then there was a little sidebar project that I did with Rhys. It was kind
right,
of
right, right,
a off of that we did upstate, and there was more music was incorporated in that.
right.
That further developed the relationship of the text and Rhys's music. And then when we came back and this became class dismissed, the two things I added were actually two duets. I called them duets, whatever that meant. But they were, two more scenes that that we wanted music for, and I'm sure that that was influenced by working with him on this other project called
yeah,
Puzzling Evidence. So it's a it's a evolving uh, collaboration.
yeah. So I think as composer, these scenes, like we mostly kept the text pretty much as it is, but we did change around. Like I think Robert initially had some visions about how it would be kind of like a dialogue, a musical dialogue, where it would be like a line of text in student A, a line of text in student B, and then so where we kind of shifted it was I was like, I wonder if we can break that up and we can make it more just mostly singing together, especially in Thought Crimes, that first scene. And then for the second scene, Danielle was like, we want it to be a Broadway musical for the whole thing, all sorts of genres of Broadway musical. And so for that one, again, it was like, maybe we're going to disorient the original intention on who says what, and we're just going to kind of use it as a block of text, and we're going to reorient who says what when. And so there's a little bit of dialogue there, There's a little bit of us singing together. There's a mixture. And so I'll wrap it up by saying like it ended up that for me around this time, like my studio location is in Troy at the moment. So I was on my own. And so I kind of like, I think informed by Danielle and us, like all of us being in the same space in January, informed by the process with Heliport, I kind of dived in this time with myself alone in the studio and started developing the composition more from a music production first standpoint and less from like a piano and voice at the same time because Robert's there with me and it feels like it wants to almost be like a live music environment. So then with music production being the and recording technology being the kind of like incubating foundation for composition, I think it kind of really changed the nature of the songs that came out. Because with me being alone in the studio, I can get a little bit more, like, I feel more compelled to be a little bit more granular in the layering of instruments so that now we've got like drums that I'm just pulling up as samples and we're getting, it's more of a kind of like a multi-layered, almost like karaoke track that's getting developed with the intention of hearing voice over it in the theater. And so um, that was really fun because then it started to pull on Vision as a music producer and not just as a composer. Um, that felt like a really beautiful, really exciting adventure and new opportunity for me to kind of like build on composition as a kind of a pure form and pure process to begin with, and then adding more complexity with this vision of having like a multi-instrument backing track. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, just watching it, um, definitely felt like a combination of like that traditional Broadway musical structure, along with just like this cacophony of sound, um, and you know, the blend of different genres and everything. I think there was like, was it reggaeton or like bachata in there? Yeah,
Reggaeton, reggaeton, reggaeton.
reggaeton.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
no,
lots
it
of
was good. It
reggaeton
was
in the play. There's reggaeton in the play, but I will clarify that the reggaeton was not my composition because we're also
right,
collaborating with the sound
incorporating.
designer. Danielle is collaborating with the sound designer Shab to create chosen music as well.
Right, right. So yeah, I mean, it all kind of, I think, um, coalesces with sort of the overall um, tone and structure and non-structure that you guys tend to do and have done with this project, as well as my ownliness. Um, so, in terms of just having done, uh, having collaborated in that way with with each other, and with the rest of the cast as well, um, how would you sort of describe your sort of how how your collaborative process has evolved since that first project, since um, that first those first experiences with ultra left violence, and what do you feel has been essential to the process?
I think that's you, Daniel.
Um, uh, I this beautiful again going back to the equation, the designers, the cast. Robert is the only playwright that is always basically 90% of the time in the room with me. You know, like it's like what Rhys just said, like being in the room, feeling an ally in the room. Of course, taking care of the text is there, but it's like in this environment, which is beautiful. In every process, is going to be different, you know. But uh, I think the evolution is that um, it's getting stronger, that dialogue, those connections, and uh, we are more efficient, like with Rhys, listen, da 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 da, and Rhys understands. I don't have to spend, maybe I would have spent 10 more minutes or 30 more minutes or an hour in the past. Now it's 5 minutes, and
There's a
Jarani
short
has,
one.
yeah, Jarani is someone that comes from experimental theater from Puerto Rico, undergrad experimentation. So when I speak about lines and movement, and I don't have to spend much time. Pepper, like it's just like especially what's happening out there in the world, going to this room of beautiful, smart, talented human beings. Um, I think that's something that it was in my loneliness, but now more than ever, we need to reinforce those ties. Uh, and what an honor that we're in this space. I think, again, going back to the equation, why this play, why Robert wrote this poetry, there was no stage direction. And then he said, go ahead, do whatever you want to do with the around, like, of course, listening to the text. So we at La Mama with Pepper's baking bread, we bring people on stage. It's an excuse to come together to celebrate us, that we're listening to each other, and I think the same thing that I'm talking about the cast is something that hopefully is being communicated to the audience, that there's a lot of respect, there's a lot of trust. I think those lines, those elements of the process have getting stronger in this one. Maybe because we need it more than ever. I don't know why, but it was, for me, it was really healing to be in that room for many reasons. Of course, I love doing theater, telling the story, being with the people. Like we're huggers. So we start the rehearsal, and literally we don't start the rehearsal until we hug each. And then maybe it's Latino or whatever, but Emily comes, our stage manager, and it's like a organic, like now in a professional environment and equity environment. Um, we go to the theater, we have 2 hours to clean because the place is a mess, and we have to clean everything the next day, right? So we have 2 hours to do it, and everybody's doing something. Everybody's sweeping, everybody's organizing, putting the prop. This cohesiveness, this tightness that I think is beyond uh, corporate, private, professional theater. It's more like a company, like an ensemble, family. I don't know. So anyway, that's what I have to say about the process. And then the one-on-ones is really like I'm getting to know more the sound designer shop in this process, working with the lighting designer. I love the one-on-ones, the dialogue, working with the artistic, the guest artist. That's really fun because I'm the only one talking with the artist, and the cast doesn't know what's going to happen that night. So having all those private moments is really, really special. And anyway, that's what I have to say. Please, Rhys, Robert, like,
Well, I also just, we're throwing a lot of names. I also want to mention Charlie Mum, who's the
yeah,
character in the play, who has no scripted lines, but he
Yeah.
was originally part of Yovo and went to Cuba with us and to South Korea. He's been in plays that Danielle's directed, so
I
he's just
love that guy.
another
Yeah,
part of the family that we have deep
yeah.
connections to. We're lucky he was around and was able to do this project with us, and then made his contributions, as you see, to the whole spirit and energy of the show. So that's another part of the family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he definitely added a certain dynamic along
Yes.
with all of you. I got
Yes.
to hold his hat when it fell at one point in
That
the
was you.
show.
I was there. I said hello.
Yeah, so no, but yeah, it definitely, I mean, with downtown theater in general, it feels very much like a sort of family endeavor, I guess you could say. Uh, and definitely in terms of now having it at La Mama, which is a downtown institution in itself, I'm sure it feels even more so. How has it been creating over there? You guys were at the New Ohio for a long time, and Robert, you were artistic director. Can you speak a little bit to um, sort of the experience of having to close one chapter at New Ohio and starting anew at La Mama, and how has that process
Well,
been?
it's been great. this was not in place when we closed, when the New Ohio closed. We had a workshop of this project, but we didn't know where it was going to land after New Ohio. And I think it landed exactly in the most beautiful space it could, in that same kind of history, that shared history of New Ohio to La Mama. La Mama's, this iconic space, and we're carving out similar territory. So I feel like we as a group have landed exactly where we belong. On a more pragmatic level, it's really great to be in somebody else's theater and other people are responsible for things and it doesn't all go through me and I'm not responsible for everything. And a lot of times people ask me and I say, I don't know. You have to ask, Sarah, you have to ask Bev, you have to ask Mia because it's not my theater. And that's a great relief and makes it even more fun for me at this moment.
Yeah, at the show that I was at, Mia was one of the special guest performers, I believe. And was that her
And
dog?
Yuna, yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's so
yes,
great.
yes.
So can you talk a little bit about sort of the idea of the sort of guest performances because you're going to have different ones throughout the run, right?
Yes. Robert, I think this is a player question. I can jump in, but I think this is you, like why you wrote Coda, and then the idea of I can jump in why Coda
Sure,
and a
but
different voice.
just the short, again, everything is about this evolution of this collaboration. When we did
Right.
Yovo, there was a little postscript that a local actress would it could be cast locally when we toured it, and then they would read the text in the whatever language of what country we were in as a like a little coda. I don't think we called it coda at that time,
No, no.
but it functioned in a similar way. The main show ended, and then a surprise, somebody stood up from the audience and read the text in the native language of wherever we were. And something about that really worked and was really fun. And so it just carried that. We didn't do that in my onlyness, but that model still existed in the back of my head. So when I was working on this, I thought, well, let's try a different version of that. But basically, that was where that came from was experimenting with Yovo and then Danielle.
The directorial approach to that text, I told Robert, it feels like something that is not connected to the play, but it is connected to the play. And the image, and this, Robert, the image that kept going back to my mind was the grandmother in Wojciech. This out of nowhere text that appears. And I'm fascinated by how the energy changes in the subway station here in New York, not here, I'm in Boston now, in New York City. The subway move, and then in each station, in each stop, you have a different energy. One stop is mariachi, the next stop is Jesus Love You, the next stop is someone fighting, the next stop, someone kissing. So life is like that. That for me is realism, not lineality, but this chaos, and then things happen, so to have a different voice that we have never heard or witnessed, and it's refreshing for the audience and it's refreshing for the performers. So that was the idea. And then it can be for someone reading it, to someone singing it, to someone dancing it, whatever the person need to express. That's the element of decolonization, what the artist is exploring. And it's just beautiful and humbling. Like you give this beautiful text, you explain the rules of the game, and then to see what comes out of the oven is magical. So far, it's been mind blowing just to see every night coming on say, and we have no idea what's going to happen. So yeah, anyway, that's more or less that moment. I'll explain.
Right, sort of like a sort of palate cleanser to the end of the evening. Um,
Well,
yeah.
something like that.
Or
Something.
that's how
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
um
Another surprise
so
right at the
a surprise at the end, a little nice treat, a little calm down. So yeah, you spoke about having done that with different artists in different countries, um, doing it in all their different languages. You guys are taking my holiness again around the world. Next stop being, I believe, the Cebu International Theater Festival in Romania. And of course, with Costas Nest, it was made in conjunction with Culture Hub, which live streamed it with South Korea. So you guys are spreading your artistic voice around the world. What and you have previously. So what have you seen that you feel that international audiences have taken away, and what do you sort of wish for them to take away with your future performances of both My Onlyness and also with this run of Class Dismissed?
Can I jump in or
Please,
like when I started going, I've been blessed, and I say this with a lot of humbleness, to travel a lot doing theater. And when you travel, you see that everybody's on the same boat. I don't want to sound cliche, but arts are they cutting arts or funding for arts all around the world. You know, it's always the section that is the area of the arts that is being attacked globally. Um, uh, and then you meet amazing artists anyway. You don't need New York. You don't need this amazing artist. I mean, you know, New York is amazing. Let me just go back. But there's so many artists all around, and just to have the opportunity to connect and get to know them is a blessing. I think that's the most beautiful thing about the opportunity of festival. For example, now this Saturday, I showed this to Robert. The team that is doing the version in Turkey is like there's a full team of 10, 12 people that are working for that coda moment that Robert wrote. And um, we have no idea what they're going to be doing, but I know them, they're amazing people. And now they're going to share with us their talent, you know, like I wouldn't be able to do that if I wouldn't be in Turkey, getting to know those people. So it's just like now we go to Romania and we have no idea who we're gonna meet there. So just keep building bridges, connections, to keep looking for way like the internet to connect, you know, like so what I want the audience to experience with My Onlyness, like there's a lot of like My Onlyness politically is connected with, there's a profound echo with Ubu and the craziness of nowadays. But at the same time that we need each other. It's all about connecting together. Same with Class Dismissed. It's the same, like that the only way to get by this craziness is by listening to each other and celebrating germs. So guys, help me here.
yeah, I think I mean, just a couple things. Just having now heard my text in many different languages, just with that different coda, or I think they're performing part of the text in Turkish. I think I'm not even sure, but in Romania they asked for the script and for super titles, and asked them to just send it to me, and so I have a copy of the script in Romania, and it's just kind of amazing to sit there and look at something that you wrote in another language that you have no idea. It's a pretty exhilarating and humbling experience.
With
Rhys,
the sort of, oh, sorry. Yes,
no,
Reese.
no, sorry, no, I was just wanted to hear, like, because we're traveling to Romania together, we're doing art
Oh, yeah.
together.
Well, I was gonna ask if the all the previous performers from the original run of My Onlyness were going with you to Romania.
Yes, there's
So,
one person, one actor that is not coming, and is being
oh, okay.
replaced by another one. Momo is the name of the new deaf actor. She's amazing, amazing, and Malik. So the rest is the same team. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
Will there be any sort of
I think
changes?
talking about it,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Robert.
I was just saying, we were just talking about this the other day, and just how long ago it was when we did it, and we had ambitions for it, and we wanted all these things, and it just some of the lesson is it's just that's how long these things take, like we were very when we had that show, I know we all thought it should immediately be remounted and people should be doing it, and touring it around the world. But now it just, the wheels turn slowly and it takes this long. we stayed with it. We actively pursued this over an arc of time, and um, but now I think it's going to be interesting going back to it when we go back in the rehearsal. And maybe Rhys, you'll have some thoughts about this. It's been a while. It's been a long time since anybody performed it, and the moment's different. We're all different people, in certain ways. So I think it'll be a very interesting revisit. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that, Rhys?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question is how will my loneliness evolve because of the time and the experience that has passed? Because I think between ultra left violence and NACL and Mercury Store and Ankara Arts Center, these offshoots of ultra left violence in terms of residencies and the duet play that Robert was talking about that he directed with us upstate, we've had, I think, original devising and performance in New Ohio, and then those two residencies and another residency upstate preparing for another performance up there, and now this at La Mama. I think that for me personally, as a participant in all of those things, getting to work with Danielle and Robert, I think it's going to profoundly impact how I experience my role in my loneliness. And frankly, I'm excited to see how it changes it because I feel like I sense that I will have more power, more sophistication to offer, and maybe more excitement, more confidence, and that feels exciting. I also think that the political climate in the U.S., that a political, I think Danielle was kind of alluding to. I think that in general, arts being considered disposable at the best case scenario of condescension. I think the worst case scenario that they are dangerous. I think that environment, that kind of collective consciousness environment is, I think it's interesting because I think that the arts are wholly indispensable. I think that the work that we're doing by doing this theater work, we are seeing it. That's the really beautiful and profound thing about theater, I think, is that you see the impact immediately in the moment, but then also while the play is happening, but then as soon as the play is done, you feel the bodies of the people in the room who have received the highly psychedelic creative information of this creative act. You see how it has absorbed into their bodies and echoes and reverberated into some kind of little post-show interaction. And I think that there's something incredibly valuable about theater and that process, especially now, especially after the pandemic. And so I think that the antagonism toward the arts actually creates more clarity of vitality in my mind and in my body and my experience. So I think that my loneliness, it's a story about a tyrant king and a writer that he beats up and kills, and a revolutionary. These are the three main character ideas. And I think that for us to be in Romania, for us to be coming from the US, to be commenting on a dictator king, we don't have to name names. We don't have to make
Mhm.
overt connections, and it's gonna feel provocative. And I think that one of the incredible uh, gifts that Danielle is bringing to the equation is the silliness, the clowning, the humor, the unpredictability, the warmth. I feel so much love in the vibe that Danielle brings, the willingness to play with this edge between performer and audience. I think it is so disarming. People don't know what to do with themselves. Like you had, I think in your experience of this, Jessica, I felt you kind of echo this. Like the audience members, from the moment that they arrive, with the intro experience of being engaged with as a theatrical happening, like from the moment you arrive as an audience member, you do not know what's going to happen, and you don't know if the spotlight is going to be on you. And so I think that there's this incredible empathy that that Danielle's approach starts with in terms of the the vulnerability of this connection between the audience and the performer, that there's an empathy right off the top that like, oh, I as an audience member, I might actually inadvertently become a performer. And so therefore I feel like there's this empathy built in where like I now as a performer have a little bit of audience in me and the audience has a little bit of performer in them. And so we have that connection. And I think one of the superpowers that Robert is bringing to it through the text is that the text, it talks about so many of the things that we are collectively uh, frightened of and frustrated about and just grief stricken and panicked. Like so much of the text talks really directly about that, but it's shrouded in ambiguity and richness of language play. And and so there's a kind of like secrecy for me in the text where it's like we're going to give you a lot of clear information, but it's going to be really unpredictable and also maze-like and at times opaque and just so, and there's going to be so much information that you cannot possibly think that you know what's happening. And that
Mhm.
I think that's the combo between both Robert and Danielle for me that's really magical is that in those different approaches, I think that the common thing that comes together with them, there's something about just being awestruck. Like as soon as you enter into the space and you receive the text and you receive the body physical information, as an audience member, I think that you experience this feeling of just like awestruck. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel really big things. I'm thinking really big things, and it's all happening too big, too fast for me to pin it down and make quick judgments about what it is that's happening. And as a result, people leave feeling more questions and more excitement than they feel some kind of button, resolution. Yeah.
I think that's
Right.
right. I think there's a surrender to the audience has to surrender to the theatricality of the piece, and the saturation of ideas. And then when it's done, they can think about what they feel about it, but the process of receiving is a kind of surrender to the, its spectacular abundance, I would say.
Yeah, and actually, in a way, going off of what Rhys said, the whole audience participation in that sense kind of might even invoke a sort of sense of agency. Uh, yeah, in terms of like the bigger ideas that play and all your other works do. So that's definitely an element there. Um, so yeah, has
Danielle, I think you should say something though, for people who might be getting scared away by this, that you're
Well, yeah, I hate as an audience member to be manipulated. So the rules, and I tell this to all my actors, we improvise, we ask for audience participation, and we ask. If they say no, is no. If they say yes, then we play. Those are the rules of the game. But I've been in situations that there's no pillow fight, or like, so there's no pillow fight, or no one does the running around. So I have to have a plan B and a plan C, because I'm preparing myself. The audience has no idea, so I can't manipulate the audience to force them to go in that direction. So we take it's like a constitution in the equation. Like we improvise, we play if there's a yes in the equation. So don't be afraid. If you don't want to play, don't play. To the audience that are watching this, if you want to play, you can play. Yeah, that's it.
though I will say if you do play, it makes for a very fun night. When I saw the show the other night, there were kids in the audience, like in the front row, across from me, and they were so down to do anything. Like the
Anything.
girl came up when your other actress asked if
Pepper,
anyone wanted
pepper.
to drink with her.
Yeah.
Pepper, yes. Um, yeah, the girl came up and yeah, it was like a really fun, almost endearing kind of moment where she was just like chugging the glass of prac wine. No, but yeah, it's an interesting element, the audience participation, and it really does add to the zaniness of it all. Um, we're getting to an hour now, so sort of in closing, I just wanted to ask um, all three of you sort of what advice you have for any sort of aspiring artists getting started on their creative journeys, whether it's theater, whether it's movement, whether it's music, writing. If you guys can impart any advice, any words of wisdom.
I've been asked this before as an arts educator, and stuff. People ask you that. But I remember one time I said, be the person who says yes, to if an opportunity comes up, say yes. And if you say yes, make yourself indispensable. Like that's a way to build a network of collaborators.
I think what I mentioned last time was like, don't wait, just do it. Even if you need to create a play in the kitchen, like, just gather, find a way to do something that you love, surround yourself with people that you like, that you believe in, and then make it happen. For me, it was residencies. People start giving me opportunities, and then you keep building from there, like, but if you don't ask for help, hit the water to see what vibrations, when you hit the water, vibrations. If you don't hit the water, nothing happens. Hit the water, undulation, and maybe a new door might open that you were not expecting. Like we're going to Romania and we have no idea what's going to happen. And I think that I know beautiful things that we don't know what they are going to happen for us. But if we don't go to Romania, it's not going to happen. So just create, don't wait to do something. I know it's easy to say, but something simple, like in your living room or in the park or something, just memorize something, put it up, share it with people, and then see other people get excited and then take it from there. That's my advice.
And Rhys.
Yeah, I would say right now what's coming to mind is maybe the idea that what makes you weird or strange or sets you apart can be a compass for finding unique belonging with the right collaborators. So I think it's connected to what Danielle said. Like, I think that everybody has their sweet spot niche, and I think like what Robert's talking about, like say yes to opportunities, explore. I think that naturally, in the process of exploring, there will be failure, and some places, some environments, some people will feel like the wrong fit, and that gets you closer to finding the right belonging, the right fit.
You can follow Daniel, Robert, and Rhys at 18theater.com. That's 1-8theater.com, robertclyons.com, and rhystivey.com. Cultivate is produced, presented, conceived by Jessica Taghap and is a resident artist production. Our intro music is by Boden Kuzman and our outro is by Tivey Rhythm. New episodes are available wherever you get your podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Substack. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and